You see yourself in the mirror.
I am, Mike was so kind to arrange Tish and Mario to be here. So I'm going to turn it over to Mike to give a proper introduction. And thank you guys for being here.
I'm very excited to have Tish and Richard here. It's really great opportunity to get a legal update of where we're at and maybe some directions and some different things. We will have a period of Q&A, hopefully at the end, that allow you to ask some of your questions. And at this point, let's just sort of want to throw it over to Tish. She's with Fatco, our First American Title.
I have my business partner, Chris Blythe, with us as well.
Okay.
Up there in the,
Hey, Chris.
Isn't this like the Brady Bunch, seeing everyone's pictures? I love it. No, but thanks, Mike, for reaching out. And so I will just let Richard take it from here.
Hi, everybody. I'm sharing a screen, and it should be management learning objectives. Does everybody see that? Or can everybody see it? Can anybody?
Yes.
Yes.
So, above that, I kind of went through, but Buckley law stuff, and it's all self-aggrandizing propaganda. It's all true. But one of the things that I am famous for is that I don't follow the outline. And I do keep it within the context of the class. Another thing, if we do questions while we're going, it makes the class much more relevant. There's sit and get, which you listen to me talk, 2% of that you'll retain 2 weeks from now, so it's kind of a waste of time even. So what I like to do is have you get out there. If you move, everybody, it looks like they're already turned their speaker on. If you reach up and hit the space bar, your speaker, it's like keying a mic. It will reduce it'll put you back live. So try that and see if that doesn't affect your microphone. Just give it a try.
Hello.
There you go. So then when you let it go, you go back on mute again. So it's like keying a mic. So if you have a question, key the mic, get the question out. I should be able to see. And if I'm not responding to you, raise your hand, get my attention somehow so I understand what's going on, that someone wants to ask a question. So get it out there. And then, so another part of not staying on the outline today is dealing with, there's this new disease going around. I call it C19. It's been in most of the papers. Y'all are being affected by it on a daily basis at every level. So I thought I would see if there's questions and spend some time talking about that and how that can affect your risk management issues. Most of the people I've talked to so far, they've read everything. They understand what the words are, and then it's starting to put it in practice. I'm also, as some of you folks are too, on the Masters of Real Estate blog that Joe Facilla runs. And I see questions and comments and angst occurring on there. And so I thought spending a few minutes on that would be a good thing. First of all, I want, now this is risk management class, and so I want to maintain my comments and context within that. It's not a poli-sci class, and so I'm not saying whether I agree or disagree on stuff. I'm just commenting on and hopefully establishing your best practices. Keller Williams is a force in Portland area for sure, and I think that you guys and how you work will help set industry standards, because that's eventually what it'll come to, is where you're following industry standards. So as we move on through that, at the recognizing now that the state of the state of California and the state of Washington completely shut real estate activity down and then recanted on that, took it back and said, well, that looks to be an essential service. And so you have the first thing is that you can say that you're an essential service. Oregon never did shut you down, considered you essential already, but now the whole West Coast looks at real estate as an essential service. And so I'm thinking that for you, that's good. That's a start in the right direction. Then it's, are you following guidelines? And the issue is, and what I've been getting in the clients, the real estate companies have been asking for at least from the legal guidance. And another thing is, what I'm going to be talk about is legalese. I try to blend that with practicality. I struggle a little bit with that right now because this has been a 2-week effort, and we've been isolated. So it's been more difficult for me to reach out and talk with people about what are you practically doing? So as a practical matter, first of all, no one's doing a blanket open house where you put a sign out in the yard and you advertise it and say, please come and see my house. Nobody's doing that. And that would be verboten under any of the rules. So then it's how are you going to get a listing? How are you going to show it to any prospective buyers? And then what do you do after that? And Chris and Tish, I would, if you want to, and this I didn't ask them ahead of time. I asked them to be prepared. If you want to talk about what First American's doing in terms of facilitating closing, that will probably be beneficial to everybody here, so that they understand the risk analysis and how you guys have gone through it to get people in your door. I think it's probably by appointment only now to come in.
Yes.
Go ahead.
We are taking all the precautions, and Chris, Blythe, jump in anytime you want.
Yeah.
One of the things that First American is doing that I think is pretty neat, we have an app that you guys can have your clients deposit the earnest money through the app, and it's just like when you do it with your bank and you're snapping a photo of the check, it gets deposited right into the escrow account. And we can send you a follow-up step-by-step document after that, but it's very simple. And Chris, Blythe, we're seeing probably 80% of people doing that now, I would say.
Yeah, any way we can avoid more people coming into our office has been super helpful. So the app is called Zoccam. It's spelled Zoccam. If you go to your app store, it's super easy. You download it. It'll have you register an account. And like Tish said, it's just like your banking application. So you'll take if you've ever deposited a check that way, you just take a picture of the front, picture of the back. It's going to have you select your First American title office. In our case, it'd be Lake Oswego, and then put in the information for buyer, seller, listing agent, buyer's agent, and then instantaneously everybody gets an earnest money receipt right then as well. So for your documentation purposes and just to make sure stuff's getting in, that's great. And even before all this madness, there's been cases on a Friday where it's business day number 3, and they need to get it in. It's 4:30 p.m. and they're like, I'm not within this amount to a First American title office. People would do it that way just so they're staying in contract and doing that. So yeah, it's super, super convenient, super easy to use. If you guys have questions, just reach out to us and we're more than happy to help with that for sure. And although we love putting together these online chats that are live, we also have online continuing education that's completely free to realtors. And that's got Code of Ethics and LARC on there as well. It takes us about 1 minute to sign you up. We have 33 hours on there right now, I think. It saves all your certificates. So if you guys are in a crunch for credit hours and stuck in the house, it might be a good time to start busting a lot of that stuff out as well.
And then as far as closings go, like Richard said, our doors are locked and it is by appointment only. And when your clients do come in the office, they have the option. We do have some gloves and things like that in the office. Of course, they're gonna never ask for the pens back. They can leave with that. And now we've got installed in all the conference rooms, as well as the escrow officers' offices, big, tall plexiglass that divides the consumer client from the escrow signer, and documents can be passed underneath that way. So lots and lots of precautions. We are also doing drive-up signings. In certain cases, if it fits the situation, the escrow officer is going out to the car and signing the client there, so they don't need to come into the office. And then, of course, lots of mobile signers.
Yep.
Okay. So one of the things that I want to highlight to everyone as you're doing this is that First American, all the processes they just talked to, they're written down. They have a checklist of things to do. When you go to close, they're going to send you something. And reason that's important, and matter of fact, you might have Chris or Tish send you that now. And then if you don't have those things written down, you should have a written way that you're going to do business, so that if it comes down to how did you do things, or what were you doing, you can say, well, this is what I did. Here's my checklist. I sent this checklist to my clients, whoever I was going to meet with, or whoever's going to meet with me. I had a checklist of things that we did. We followed how we did things so that we can understand each other. And when you go to a listing meeting, if that happens, how are you going to conduct the listing meeting? And you should have a checklist that your clients, the potential potential seller can has a checklist from you. And this is going to show your professionalism, but it's also going to have you give the opportunity for you to think about what things you're going to do to keep yourself safe and your clients and your sellers and buyers safe.
Richard, can I just mention one more thing, that the escrow officers are required, and we hope no one's offended by this, but I'm sure they're not given the situation, but there are a few questions that they have to ask the clients before they have them come in to sign, or when they're in the process of deciding upon which manner they should be doing the signing. You know, questions of, have they been sick? Have they had fever? Things like that.
Right. So, hi, Dwight. It's good to see you. If you joined late, one of the things is I'm taking questions as we go. If the space bar on your computer will act as keying a mic. So if you press it down, you'll be off of mute. When you let it go, you'll be back on mute again. So if you have questions, get them out there. Let's make sure it's more of a collaborative effort. So the bottom line on this, what I want to make sure all of you know, is that all the stuff you've read, everything that you've talked about, how you should act, you should start writing down the list of what you're going to do to follow those instructions, so that reducing your risk, of getting this particular malady, but also when managing the risk, if something happens and somebody makes a blame, accuses you of doing something wrong, you can say, I have my list, I wrote it down, it's thought out, it's consistent with, and then that's the next thing. What is the industry standard here? And you have, I've seen a lot of stuff from NAR, I've seen a lot of stuff from OAR and CDC and the federal government, and the president saying, I'm not wearing a mask, and everybody else saying you should. So my encouragement on for everybody on that is, have it in writing, follow it, and the questions that Tish was talking about are the questions about, have you been sick? Have you had a fever? Our employees, we still have, out of 50 employees, we still have 5 coming to the office. And we have written rules about how to do that. Their temperature is taken on the way in the door. Their temperature is taken on the way out the door, so we can see if they got sick during the day. We're really, really making ourselves aware of what's happening to people who come into our office. We haven't had any of our clients or vendors or anybody come in to have that test yet, because there's a sign on our door that says we need you to take the temperature, and we have thermometers. By the way, we're running out of thermometers. So far, no one's wanted to have the temperature taken, so that's okay. But my risk analysis and risk management for you is make sure that you do this, have something in writing. I don't know if Dwight or Mike or Peter have put anything together on this for your company, wide stuff, but I would encourage there to be some. Well, certainly you have for people coming into your office. I know that's a mandatory thing, but for agents, some sort of the protocols that you want to follow are pretty clear. So any questions, thoughts, practicalities, how things are or are not working?
So Garrett, hey, Richard, I came out a little late. I apologize. Our offices are closed. There's a few people that are going in, not many. So I think we're pretty good on that count. With regard to how we can show houses and the protocol that people are following, I think we've done a pretty good job of that. We've posted a lot of different ways that people are doing it. I'm looking at your printout, which is talking about, you emphasizing taking notes and documenting conversations and being careful about what you say. Can you speak a little bit more to that? What you would expect to see going on right now, or maybe what's emerging right now, with some of the things, the conversations you're having with property owners, and good news, bad news about their realtors, anything like that?
Sure. So just what I've done on this is talked with several of the companies we represent, talked with some of the agents we do, and then I've talked with people that I know that are owning homes, looking to sell homes, more buyers and sellers. So I've kind of done as much polling as I can do right now, and still, because I actually am getting new clients. But of course, from the seller's point of view, the major thing that I'm seeing from the seller's point of view is the market. They don't understand. There's a lot of not much understanding, or maybe it's a different word, uncertainty about what the market's going to do. Should they sell now, or should they wait? Could they get a better price now, or just should they dump their house now because the market's going to crash? So from my seller's client's point of view, that's more their concern. So if you're going to do a listing, and I would expect that to be one of the questions that they want to probe you guys on, to understand what, if anything, you know. And I would ask anybody out there, have you done a listing engagement? Has that come up as a topic at all?
Yeah, no doubt. That's one of the number one things that are coming up right now. Plus, we're getting calls. I had 3 calls this weekend from people that are wondering what's going on. They were thinking about coming on the market. They're wondering if they should. And so, last week the news was pretty negative again, and so it is shaking people's confidence, buyers and sellers. So,
anybody else? Has anybody been on a listing agreement in the last 2 weeks, and has that come up? No? Okay. Well, and
Yes.
thanks, Peter. So what did you respond to, Peter? What did you tell them?
Well, I told them we talk about interest rates, and we know where they are now, and the fact that they can't stay there. We know where we are today, and we won't have a clue where we're going to be in 30 days. But if there is an economic slowdown, it's going to be significant. Obviously, that will affect prices. So basically, the only way to avoid further uncertainty is to get on the market now and go. And so far, it's worked.
So, anybody else?
hey, Richard,
Yes. Hi, this is Beth Castro in McMinnville. Hi, Richard.
Hi.
Hi. I was on a listing call last Friday, and in addition to the kinds of questions that you're posing, which I think are foremost on most sellers' minds, they're concerned about if we do get, and my response to that is our inventory remains incredibly low. We still have buyers that need to buy. They have a reason that they need to make a purchase and move into a property. And so they're almost as big as their fear about the market is, are we going to be able to get an inspection? Are we going to be able to get an appraisal on time? What is this going to do to the appraisal? What happens if they can't get an inspector in that 10-day business period? So I think that if you have sellers that have some experience in this, they've sold before, they know the process a little bit, they have some legitimate concerns about what's going to happen. Are we going to be able to complete the sale? We're interested in selling, but what happens if we get in a transaction and then we can't complete it? So that's a big question. The other big question is, where are we going to go? Do we have something that we've already purchased? Are we moving out of state? Are we prohibited from moving out of state? So just these kinds of questions, I think, are very prevalent right now.
That's all the tertiary things that come out of I want to sell, but how's that going to work, and what's the biggest thing in terms of the market. And the reason I bring that up in the context and to address Dwight's request is in the context of risk management. What you say, it needs to be documented, but what you say needs to be, and Dwight, I think, said it very artfully, is that, and Peter also said it very artfully, is let's look at where you are now. There's always uncertainty. The certainties we know now are that you have low interest rates, you have people that want to buy, and the market hasn't crashed yet especially on the West Coast. There's lots of things driving that, but I think that might be something for the end of this class, because we're 20 minutes in and I haven't got to one yet. So the idea of what you tell your buyers, your sellers, and your buyers, because the buyers have those same kinds of questions. Will I have a low interest rate? How long is that going to last? Should I wait for the price to go down? Is the market going to crash? But the other thing that we have is we have 30% unemployment rate right now, and the optimism. Hey, I'm gonna take just a moment. Hey, John, it's good to see you, but we can see from your glasses up. So you have nice glasses, by the way. Just to let you know, if that's your backyard, I want to come and be at your place next time. So the uncertainties that the buyers are facing are the same, and what you tell the buyers and the sellers about those kind of things. There you go. We can see you all now, John. Oh, there you go. What you tell them needs to be documented, because the moment something goes wrong, and there's a lot more that can go wrong now in a transaction, the moment something goes wrong, you're going to be the person that's going to be looking to be to blame. And so I'm going to jump onto the outline and talk about number 2 on the outline. It's the documents, document. And when I do these live, I do a test, and I want to do that test and see how this works now. See if you get the point. The faces I see here, except for Peter and Dwight, are pretty young, and even John's is pretty young compared to theirs. But you might already be doing this. But to document a file, it's this easy. Hey Siri, make a note.
One moment. What do you want it to say?
I told John that based on the C-19 epidemic, he should sell right away.
Okay, I created a note.
That I can drag. I don't know if everybody got that. I asked Siri to make a note for me. It made a note. I could have just as easily asked it to send an email. The problem is when I'm on GoTo meetings, it screws up my email a little bit. But I could have that dragged and dropped right into my electronic file. And that becomes documenting my file about what I told John. So my encouragement to you is start using your electronics to make more notes. You'll make notes. You don't have to write a novel. 1 or 2 sentences, just like I did. I talked to John, I told him this. I told him why I told him this. And so those are the kind of issues in terms of documentation you should start doing. And the risk analysis of that is how good is that reliable? And what we're seeing in today's world in litigation is that your e-files are what everybody considers the most reliable. The last trial I did, we used no paper. The judge insisted that they didn't want any paper in the room. They wanted us to do it all electronically. We had to set it up that way. Both attorneys did it. We had, in my case, I had a staff person, my paralegal, help me with the exhibits and get them so they were displayed correctly at the right time. But we're seeing that as the way things are going. In fact, in that case, the judge said, wanted to know where the document came from. I told the judge where it came from. They asked me to access it real time online, access the document that I was talking about in a file. I was able to do that, and it just upped the credibility even more. But the idea of having a file, e-file that you continually use and continually use to document is what you want to have doing. Another thing is on voice messages. I get voice messages a lot, and hopefully you guys are still too doing that. But my voice messages come to me by email. That I have a voice message. I can open it there. It's called a WAV file. I can listen to it as many times as I want, and then get the phone number off of it and make the call or not, but then I save that voice file to my client file. So when the client calls or whoever calls about a client file, I just drag and drop that in, and that's always now part of the file. So I know even the voice messages I got. So to the extent you have some technological upgrades you need to do, now's a great time to do them, because there's a lot of tech people looking for stuff to do. There's a lot of people that want you to start doing tech boiled. And a way off topic prediction I have is, because we're going to get used to doing meetings like this. We're going to be doing this for at least another month. There's going to be a lot less. There's going to be a lot more. It's going to become a much more acceptable way to conduct meetings and conduct and have business being done. People are, in fact, our office specifically, we had some new space we could take down to grow, because we want to grow from 28 to 35 attorneys is our plan. We've now looking at reevaluating whether we need the new takedown space. We're talking to our landlord now about not taking that space and having more remote working done. So the way of the future is being dictated right now. I would encourage that you start using more of it, and start in terms of documentation, start using more of the electronic capabilities that you already have to generate that. Some highlights of what to document then is what when I should talk about. Anytime you're talking about a property or anybody related to a particular property, you should be documenting that file. And that, so if you're talking about the inspector, what did you talk about? If you're talking to a lender, if you're talking to the buyer or the seller about it, or the buyers or sellers agents, you should be documenting that. Quick electronic notes into the file, you're good to go, and that's what you need. Of course, to the extent you can, I call it, well, in my world I call it setup files, but it's a confirming emails. And I say email on purpose, because how many of us text? I've got 4 texts. While we've been here, I got 4 texts. It is the least desirable evidence for 2 reasons. One, it's the hardest to capture right now. In order for me to capture my text, which I have to do now, I have a special app that I use to send it to reconstruct the entire thread of conversation, so that when I send it, it'll be in one thread versus a screenshot after screenshot after screenshot. And so it's the least desirable unless you're going to download that app. The app is kind of quirky sometimes, and so you have to make sure, and it's another step. But I would encourage that if you're going to do text, if that's the way of the world for you, you should download an app and make sure that you can easily recapture your text, so that on a routine basis, not when I need it or not at the end of the day or the end of the week, but on a routine basis, every day, every text you get that goes in a client file goes in a client file that day. The way to do filing is today, not next week. So make sure that happens that way. Or don't text. Another reason text isn't as desirable is because commonly, and I'm going to ask, so think about whether this is true for you. Commonly when I see text, people become less and less formal and less professional in what they text about, even with their clients. And so we see things coming up and things being said in ways and things being said because they seem like they're more private, I think, that people wouldn't normally say on the phone, or certainly not in person. Has anybody experienced that for themselves? Have you seen your text being that way, or text you're getting from your clients being that way? Any thoughts, comments? No? Go back and look at your texts and see how professional they are. If you're going to use text as a way of business, and I think people will, and so just I call pro it up. Make sure it stays at the pro level. Don't get down in the personal weeds on it, because it's such a soundbite that if it's used as evidence, in any way, the less professional you are, the less professional the text appears, the less credible you will be within the context of that text. So just, yes.
Can you repeat the name of the app that you download your text with?
Mine's an iApp. Just a minute. I don't know the name of it. It's if you go to the App Store, go to if you have an iPhone. Those of you have iPhones, if you go to the store, go to the Apple Store. There's several apps in there. And like I said, I talked about the quirkiness of mine. I'm not as happy with it as I want to be, so I'm thinking about changing. But there's 3 in there that are, and I picked the top one. I picked the top free one. So I'm probably going to pick one that I have to pay for. The name of it, I don't know. I don't want to look it up. Go look at Apple Store, pay for one. It's going to be better, I think.
Okay, thank you.
You bet. Sorry, Laura. I don't want to recommend that particular app because I'm having trouble with it. So my encouragement on those 2 things is the documentation that you're going to be doing is important. I started to get into the confirming email, another way to document things, and I could have done that just as easily. Hey Siri, please send an email to John DaCosta. Thanks for talking with me about the property. I understand that the plumbing needs to be fixed throughout the house. We're going to have our plumbing inspector come over. Now I've done. John's told me something.
What's the subject of your email?
I'm sorry. Siri wants to go to work for me right now, sending emails. So now I've confirmed what John has told me and what I've told him we're going to do about it. And I can also set timelines and those kind of things within the context of what I'm doing. Show of hands here, everybody who has we call it docket systems, but a timeline management for each of your files. So you set up a timeline of what you're going to do. Show of hands.
Yep.
Everybody should, the industry standard clearly is on every transaction, there is a timeline for things to get done. And that's part of the documentation you should be maintaining in your file. You should be checking. You should have a regular system for checking it. So if somebody said, how did you miss that? I didn't miss it. I look at this every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and I check things off that haven't been done. If they haven't been done, I go make sure they're getting done or find out why. You need to have that checklist. It needs to be in your file. You need to have a process that you can say that I follow, which then brings me back to kind of globally on this is that part of risk analysis and risk management is having a process in place that you follow. And what we've talked about is my C19 process when I go to listing agreements, my C19 process that I go to when I have buyers through a house. My Tish and Chris told us about the C19 written processes that they follow before they're going to let you come to their office, or a process for you to timely deliver checks to them, earnest monies to them. So those processes are the process they follow. If you say, and if someone is blaming you for something or saying, well, how do you handle this? You say, I have this process, this is what I do, it's written down and this is how I do it. Then those are the things that are gonna save you in the risk management world. Because, well, I try to do this most of the time, doesn't work. Now we can see how you failed this time because you didn't have a written process to follow, or if you do have processes, you don't follow them. That's the other thing we see. You have a written process. Yes, it's in the book. What book it is? Let me find that book. Do you ever look in this book? No. Do you ever follow this process? Well, I try to sometimes. That's the kind of thing you have to look at who's going to get you in trouble. So that the more you can make your life of real estate a series of processes that you follow, and the successful people, got people that are very successful at this. They have their list of processes, and they just know that what processes that you can't see my hands because I'm off screen on these speaking hands. The list of processes that they have to follow, and then they go down, did I follow this process this week, and this one, and this one, and this one? Did I follow my checklist? The same with us. We have a checklist for getting documents in, for taking depositions, for making sure a complaint's filed correctly and timely and the responses are done. All these processes are checklists that when somebody says, what do you do? This is what we do. This is how we do it. And because we actually follow those, our risk is pretty low. The top, just some ideas about things, the number one risk attorney of attorneys is real estate law. And because if we do something wrong, it's a $200,000 or $300,000 loss. And so the losses are huge. It could be multi-million dollars of losses depending on the size of the deal. So it's imperative that we do things correctly. Same with you. Someone doesn't get the house, has to pay more for the house than they should, doesn't make as much profit, or loses a house and has some kind of damages. Your damages are huge. And so the idea that you should have processes that you follow should not be new to you. And hopefully I'm just reminding you and maybe giving you some new areas to work in and some ways to document your files. Hey, so let me take a moment. I kind of watch how long I talk. I've been talking for too long. Could some of you share out for us so we can see how the variety of ways to do things? Because I'm not telling you how to do it. There's a variety of ways. Pamela, it's fun to watch because as you move around, your background is overshadowing you and not. The further you get away from the camera, you kind of fade into the trees and like you're going to go for a swim in the ocean there. It's kind of fun to watch. So that's what happens when I do mine. My virtual background doesn't work really well, so I have this white one behind me. Yeah, right. There she goes. So share out for me, would you, so that for the benefit of everybody in the group, ways in which you document your files, especially if they're electronic. Can you share that stuff out? Anybody? I'll handpick my volunteers if no one wants to speak up. John, you're really good at this stuff.
Well, I have the worst assistant I've ever had. That's me. So I keep everything in two places. In my emails, I log everything in by deals. So I keep every copy of every email in there. And then I also have in Dropbox all the documents. Obviously, we keep everything in Command. But my list is just on my desktop. And, you know, as things come in, I guess once I learn and master Command or, you know, get better at it, I'll be doing more in the Command thing. But I like to have multiple backups. That's something that, you know, if you lose something. The other day, by the way, I could share with the group, I woke up and did my workout, and they said, get your workout before you do your emails. That makes life better. Did my workout, turned on my emails. My whole Office 365 was gone. And I had an email, I got reloaded the whole thing, and Xfinity sent me an email. Sorry about that. Something happened in my neighborhood that put us down. And so that was a very interesting day. So I do believe in multiple places so that, you know, if you have one of those days where you can't find something, just look in the other place.
Right.
But checklists are really, I mean, there's lots of great software that does it. And I really respect the people that do all the processing and get good at it, because I right now have to do both jobs, do the deal and document the deal. So, but my volume is down for, you know, more than just the virus reasons. I wanted to take a year of, you know, just getting ready to retire at some point and, you know, just looking things over. And I like to be hands-on with my deals. All my clients are old clients. You know, I know everybody, so I just felt better, and I'm glad I don't have an assistant now, because with the virus, it's okay to be on your own, because we're all on our own.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting times. I share with everybody my best wishes to everybody that, you know, what your grandma said, stay liquid, don't buy that, be careful, you know, all the stuff is all coming true.
Yep. Anybody else on how you document your files? This is for the benefit of your group, not just because you want to show off, but everybody
Richard,
else.
I use an iPhone, Richard, and I have my voicemails automatically translated to my texts. And so then I have to do it with iPhones. You have to delete your voicemails, right? It only let you hold a certain number of them, and you have to delete them. And so because they're converted to text, which is not perfect. If I had to rate it, I would say, you know, the text conversions are 80% accurate, maybe. They're not as good as I would like, but then they're there, right? Because you don't delete texts.
Cool. Anybody else?
We at the Clark Group, we use a couple of tools. We use a tool called Brevity, which is a transaction management software piece. I'm guessing other people here on the call use it as well. That helps us through the marketing stages and the escrow process with to your point, this is the flow chart, or these are the things that we have to do through the process. And then in our CRM, which is Commissions Inc., and hopefully we're migrating over to Command soon, every time we discuss something with a client, we're making notes in that client's file about the subject matter, just like you did with Siri. So it's in one central location.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Richard?
Yes.
Well, I have an Android phone. I have never migrated to the iPhone, and they've got a great program for text backups, SMS text, and it goes directly into my Gmail, and you can search by name or by phone number. So the whole threads, there's no inconsistencies. So it's worked really well.
My daughter has that program, and she does the same thing, because she won't. I mean, if I call her on the phone, she won't answer. I'll get her voicemail, and then she'll text me within seconds. "What do you want, Dad?" And I just say, "Would you answer the goddamn phone?" So, but yeah, she does that same kind of a thing. So, anybody else want to share out? Okay. So we've talked about processes in place, and we tied it to the C19 thing that's going on now. There's going to be the next thing. It was at one time we could say LP siding was the best thing since sliced bread, and then it was, oh my God, 6 months later it has LP siding on it. And the world is going to keep changing like that for you, and having your processes fit those changes is going to be very, very important for you. And as you get into the electronic age, and as you start dealing with, as we look in this, just the pictures of everybody here, the videos of you, just dealing with folks who are it's more intuitive for some people to use like the other does. I've kind of been the bleeding edge electronics person at my firm, and now I have most of the people are a couple decades younger than me now, and they're so far it's more intuitive. They've touched more electronics than I've ever thought about. Someone says, well, you can do that, and I never even thought about it. But once you say something, then it can be done. So that's going to be important for you. We've talked about documentation and the idea that you should start. You need to be completing your documentation, partly because you can be. The English language has more words in it than any other language on the planet. And it means that you can be very precise. And in our world, and especially my world as a lawyer, it means I have to be very precise because all the words are there for me to be that way. Sometimes it's like you have a quota of words that you have to use them all that you know. And for me, it's like, no, let's go the other way. There is no document, there is no documentation that's going to cover every eventuality. That's why every sentence should be very specific, and every little bit of communication should have to be very specific, with a beginning, a topic, and an end to it. So we've resolved that issue, or we're going to resolve it later. So thinking about your documentation and your correspondence is going to help you. I haven't touched on negotiations much, but we're way into this. We have 15 minutes late, and I've only been on number one. I'm going to move on. I'm going to go to cooperation, setting expectations. The risk management comes is that we have unhappy people because there's unmet expectations, and so it's very important for you as listing agents to set the expectations for your clients. We talked about the C19 expectations as something new, but you should already be setting a lot of different expectations with your client. One, how hard is it to do marketing right now? What do you think how do you think an appraiser is going to do marketing right now? And by the way, is an appraisal better than a CMA? Generally, let's see a shake of heads, yes or no.
If you're trying to get along.
The short answer should be yes, and because and that's because you have a professional that's all they do is putting together, and they don't care whether the transaction goes or not. They just have to do an appraisal of its value, and so you should always be willing to rely on appraisal more than your CMA. Now, do appraisers, are they perfect? Do they always get it right? No, they make mistakes. And I know that you've had to talk with them and say, did you consider this and consider that? But for the most part, they go back and they will call people and say, what's this deal like? What happened to it? Why was it such a sweetheart deal? And then they can make their adjustments. Where your CMA is just but your CMA is what's on the market and what's sold that was similar. without all those other adjustments. So my encouragement for you is to think about in terms of talking with your clients and setting expectations about pricing, because that's one of the very first things that buyers and sellers want to know about, is that you understand the weaknesses and for just I would like for somebody, for you guys, let's come up with 3 weaknesses to the CMA in today's market.
Today meaning virus market.
Yes, the C19 market.
It looks backwards.
Say it again.
It looks backwards, not forwards. CMAs don't tell you what's going to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
It's also a moving target.
Moving target. All right, and I think that's a really important point, because we don't know right now what today houses sold for a month ago, 2 weeks ago, and last week. Was that deal affected by the C19 virus market? Was it or not? And it might have been. Someone might have had a lot of foresight and said, I'm dumping the house, or I'm out, or I'm taking this great deal now because I'm not going to get it later. Those might have been affected. So that's some of the weaknesses. One more weakness. Anybody?
I guess that with the CMA, you only look at it at the value from one direction, whereas an appraiser is looking at it from 3 different perspectives: the replacement cost and the market cost and whatever it is, the third.
Income, the income of it, yeah. So those are, an appraiser does say, and they say that a single family residential, that they usually are going to choose the market approach, and then they have to look at those things. So that is another weakness in it, is that you don't consider any other approaches. So looking at it for yourselves, understanding the weaknesses of the things that you do, and then how you have to adjust those and setting your client expectations, really, really an important thing. And same with their property. There's no perfect property. Even the builder clients we have, they recognize they're not building the perfect house, and that we're going to deal with the imperfections as part of the transaction. And your seller clients especially, need to understand that that's going to have to come up. Buyers in the same boat. What do they want to know pricing too, right? Where's the CMA on this house look like, and what does that do with the weaknesses of it? And that they're not going to close on the perfect house, and setting those expectations, and then setting the expectations during the negotiations of what they're going to look like. Does the seller not want to do any negotiations on any fix-up? They don't want to do any fix-up whatsoever, or are they willing to? And recognizing then, as you set those expectations for them, that most of and I do a negotiations class on this, but most positions will change over time. And so your expectation has to be that over time, your clients are going to change their position, and you just need to know and be able to keep up and if you're super close with your clients and can predict what changes they might make and when they might make them. We're seeing now a big change, right? 33% unemployment. I will bet everybody in this room now knows somebody who's unemployed because of all this. I know 2 people, and so who are unemployed because of the current situation. And what's that going to do to them if they own a home? And what's that going to do to them if somebody if they were looking to buy a home? How does that affect them? And setting the expectations of all that's going to be important. I'm on 3D. I don't know if you can see that screen there, 3D. I'm 9 minutes to time, but I want to mention this one specifically because in the LARC class, if you haven't taken the LARC, you will, but if you already have, was mentioned already, that there's a new statute. And the new statute says that, I'm paraphrasing, that realtors will not act outside their expertise. So why do you think the legislature said we need a statute that tells realtors that you're not supposed to act outside of your expertise? Why do you think that?
Because it's obvious.
Yeah. Because there was a lot of complaints about that. And homework assignment for you, I'm not going to go through them now, but homework assignment, go through your sale agreement, just the standard sale agreement. There's any, the bare land or the condo or the just a standard one. Go through the OREF form and look for the 5 times that it says you're not an expert in this area. The realtors are not an expert area. They need to get another expert. The contract itself says for you, there's areas that you're not expertise, so don't do it. There's now a statute that says you're going to have to work within your expertise more. And I know how difficult that is and how hard a subject this is, because how many, raise of hand, how many of you have been down to the planning office looking, or online looking for permits? Yeah, right? So is that inside your expertise or not? And how would you find that in, how would we get that same information if you're not going to do it? So the short answer on that is most of this stuff is your client's going to, and the other part of the statute says you have to tell your client to get the right expert. And if you don't know the right expert, you don't have to find them, but that's one of the services then that in this area that you can provide. I looked for the experts, these are the experts in this area. If you want to know about permits, go online and Portland Maps. I'll just ask about Portland Maps. How accurate is Portland Maps on permits? 80%. It's 20% inaccurate on permits. So that you're using public information. When you go down to the, if you've been down to the planning department, how many people have been down to a planning department? Raise your hands. Yeah. There's a sign right in as you walk in. We cannot give legal advice. Whatever they tell you, you cannot rely on. And so those are the issues that if you take that back and say, well, I went to the planning department and this is what they said, or this is what I saw, can you rely on that? Well, not even there. You can't rely on them. So how can anybody rely on what you're saying? And do you go back and say, well, I'm going to tell you this, but you can't rely on it? No, that doesn't seem very useful. So these are the areas and what we're seeing and why there's a statute, why it's part of the LARC class that says you need to operate within your expertise. And some other areas, how many people for their clients read the CC&Rs and the bylaws for their clients? Show of hands there. Nobody. That's good. You should. Oh, Chris does. So what do you know about I'm not Chris directly, but what do you know? What do you know about CC&Rs, and what do you know that's important to your client? Oh, and by the way, Chris, let me ask specifically, put you on the spot a little bit. Why do you read the CC&Rs?
More for my own knowledge, and if somebody has mentioned to me that there's something that won't be allowable for them in a particular development, then I will look through that and then I'll point them in that direction to look in that specific page or column.
Okay. Anybody else?
And I do that with my people too, because I'm a senior specialist where I live and that's where I deal with. Help them go to the CC&Rs and point out.
Okay. So there's in the NAR ethics course, there's a real example that happened on the East Coast. And the question, the fact scenario was, the agent was asked, what's all that construction across the street? And the agent responded, well, I don't know really, but I think it's the new shopping mall that's planned. And as it turned out, it wasn't a shopping mall, it was a rendering plant. Smelled horrible. And the new shopping mall was going in about a half a mile down the road. And the question is, was that a violation of their ethical obligations? And the answer is yes. Even though they said they didn't really know, what do you expect? And this is the perspective and the paradigm of your client. When they ask you, the professional, for an opinion, even when you say, I don't really know, but I think, what do they hear? They hear, oh, it is the shopping mall. I can rely on that. So when you provide information, the information has to be 100% accurate, or you can be responsible for it. And what the statute's saying is you need to start relying more on getting resources. You should be the source of the information. You should not be the source of the information. So and the reason I spend so much time on it almost 4 minutes now is because it's part of the new class. It's part of a new statute. The real estate agency is going to be using that and looking at that a lot more. And so I would encourage that you start looking at what's outside your expertise and start putting a list of additional vendors together. I think that my view on that for CC&Rs, I get asked to read those all the time, and my pushback is, for what? What are you looking for? Well, I just want to know if there's anything I should know. Well, if you want to know that, you should read them yourself, because what's important, if you can't say anything that's important to you, then or not important to you, well, can I operate a business with my CC&R? Well, then I can find that answer real quick. But most clients don't want to read them, right? Matter of fact, most of us in this room today don't want to read the CC&Rs. But what's important to them, and what about, well, can you park your motorhome out front for half a day or 2 days? And for me, I don't care. I don't have a motorhome, but my client, that might be the deal breaker for them, that they have a motorhome. They're shopping for a motorhome, that they want to buy a house that they can park the motorhome out. And if it's not even on their radar, then it's a problem. And I had one up in Barrington Heights. People bought a house, put in a artificial lawn. It looked so real that nobody caught onto it until they had a party there, and people go, artificial grass, that's prohibited by the CC&Rs. The buyer didn't even suspect that you couldn't put an artificial, that there'd be a rule like that. Did not even suspect, but there was a specific rule that said no artificial lawns. Tried to get that rule changed, and there's everybody who came, and we had parties and had people come and look at it. It's the best you ever saw. And the reason the guy wanted it and bought this house specifically for it is because he could put it on artificial grass. He was elderly, could not mow the lawn, did not want to have to hire a service, and but always wanted to have his lawn looking nice for his neighbors and whatnot. So and it was a great looking one, and everybody, they were considering changing the rule, but you have 400 homeowners that needs a 75% vote. Not likely going to happen. So he's have to take out his lawn, and it's a $25,000 expense to take the lawn out. So huge efforts. Who would have known unless he said, well, I want to make sure I can put it in an artificial lawn. So my encouragement to you is, if you're reading CC&Rs, stop. It's not going to be for you a maker. If your client wants someone to read CC&Rs, then they need to have specific things they're looking for, specific goals in mind, or they needed to read them themselves so they can get an idea that the prohibitions fit their needs. And I'm done on time. I want to, before I leave you, I'd like to jump down just to number 4. There's 3 things there that we see in the risk management: lack of clarity in the repair addendums, causing lots of problems. One of them, then contingency deadline management, causing lots of problems. And contacting when you get in trouble, when you see a problem, or if you're trying to figure out if something might be a problem, if you don't do it right, look at contacting your management team. Get other minds on it, because you'll have a much better view of how to approach a problem if you have other people thinking with you on it. I've run over the hour by minute. Thank you guys for participating so well. Tish, I don't know if you have anything else, or Chris.
And Richard, can we ask you a couple questions that have just come in from others during this time? One person asked, are you going to provide this document to share with our agents?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Another question is, what's your take on realtors interpreting preliminary title reports? I took your class, so I know what you're saying.
So that's actually one of the areas, if you look at the sale agreement, it says you're not an expert on title reports. Realtors are not experts on the title. If you have questions, you should see the title officer. So that's my opinion. As a matter of contract, you're not the expert. As a matter of contract, you're telling them to go someplace else for that information. So as a matter of contract, you should not look at them and should not opine on them. There's a longer answer to that, because I had a long, several years discussion with Scott Taylor when he was the commissioner, and he completely disagreed with it. And that's why it became part of the contract. just contracted the agents out of it. You should not do it.
And your escrow officer should be notifying you if there's anything that comes up on the title report that needs, and they'll let you know, they should let you know that they're working behind the scenes on clearing, you know, what might be going on.
Yeah, they're not going to clear easements and those kind of things unless they create problems. Adverse possession claims are not covered by title insurance, and so those are the kind of issues that they're going to be for you to. But if you have questions about what this line, I had a client ask me a question about where the property line was versus the street line, and I asked, there was a copy, and the copy was kind of fuzzy. And I said, "What's this line?" "Oh, we think that's a copy mistake, a copy line created by the copier." And I go, "Well, I'm not buying." And so we went down, had a title officer look at it. "Oh no, that's the property line. It's 2 feet. The property line was 2 feet from the street, but from the front door of this property. It was $1.5 million sale in downtown, and it was 2 feet from the front door of this property. But there was 10 feet out was a rock wall and all kinds of landscaping, all in the public right of way. Lake Oswego right now is going through that. They're expanding some streets, and people are finding out that their beautiful landscaping's out in the middle of the right of way, and the city's going, yeah, you're gonna have to move that. And there's a lot of angst about it. So I would not, don't do it. That's my view.
And if they want to do a quick, you know, Zoom call on having an escrow officer or a title officer go over standard exceptions, things like that, Chris and I are happy to set that up.
And if it's really important to you and you want the property lines insured, First American has a product that, well, they'll send a surveyor out. You have to pay for it, but they'll find the markers so you know where they are.
Thank you so much, Richard, and thank you, Tish, and Chris for setting this up, and Mike setting this up. Dwight, you have any final words for us?
Words of wisdom.
Richard, you did say something earlier that I think you should spend an extra minute or two on. You said that it is now industry standard to have a transaction checklist. And can you please just spend a second talking about why that's important to us if we get sued? This buzzword, industry standard, what does that mean if suddenly we're going to court?
So if you look at, there's a lot of written rules, right? There's your code of ethics. That's part of the rules that people expect you to comply with, and that'll come up in a lawsuit. There's the Oregon Real Estate Agency rules, and they'll come up. And then, but we can't write, and all the rules don't cover everything. And so then there's, what does the industry do in this situation? And so, for instance, there's no written rule about how you should act as a realtor dealing with C-19, none. But how is the industry reacting to it? There was no written rule when they discovered, and some of you might be too young to remember LP siding, but when they discovered LP siding was junk and should never be put on a house, there was no written rule on how to deal with it. But the industry standard quickly became, you have to tell about it, you have to tell people don't buy it. There's all kinds of things that happen back, and now there's even an industry standard now. Isn't there an LP siding form that you fill out? There's certainly an EFIS form. Houses built before '78 had lead-based paint. I'm just using examples about why it's important, right? Before 1978, there could be lead-based paint on a house. My house was built in 1952. There's lead-based paint all over this house. And so, but no one used to say anything about it until the federal government said, well, that's a problem, and we should start telling about them. And the industry standard, by rule now, it says you have to give the lead-based paint form. So you have rules, but then you have the industry standard, what the industry is doing. And the industry standard is set by the industry leaders, frankly. The companies that are paying attention like you guys are, and you adopt rules right away. And so you have a bunch of agents doing it a certain way. And once you have 2 or 3 big companies doing it, and everybody's doing it that way, then it becomes industry standard. And people are going to ask. And one of the first things I ask in depositions and in trials is, do you know the industry standard on this? Does your company have a policy on this? Do you know are there any written rules or regulations? So I can start really broad industry standard, right down to, you know, the rules and regulations, and do you know whether this violates any ethical code? So the industry standard is the least written rules, but it's how everybody's doing it within the industry. So so that's and if everybody's doing it, then it must be the right thing to do, and it lends credibility to it. And once you say, well, no, I'm not complying with industry standard, you've just lost on that point.
Perfect.
That answer your question, Dwight?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Anything else? Go to the order.
Richard, do you think we're going to have twice as many realtors next year or half as many?
Well, the reason there might be twice as many is because those people are looking for jobs, right?
You're correct.
Right, and real estate must be something that's easy to do, right? So
Takes a weekend to get a license,
right? So no, my view on that is that we're going to have half the realtors in Oregon that we had this year, I guess that answers that question. I expect that if this goes away by the end of May, that we're back to work, even at a high level, at like a 90% level back to work, then the industry market will pick up rapidly. You will have a busy summer, or starting in June, you'll have a busy time. When they start saying things like, well, we're going to lift all these 2 weeks. We're not going to extend them beyond May 30th. And I'm using May 30th as an artificial timeline. But once they start saying those kind of things, you're going to start seeing business pick up for yourselves. And so I would encourage you to be ready for that pickup. It will happen.
Awesome. Hey, I would add one more thing. And one of my big concerns personally is what's going to happen to financing. I know we get to deal with all the things that you've talked about today, Richard. It's all extremely important to how we operate. But the financing world is changing quickly as well. This weekend, this would be for you and Tish as well. A client sent me an article that Wells Fargo is no longer doing jumbo loans, closing on jumbo loans, unless the borrower has at least $250,000 in assets with them. Which is a big hit in the jumbo loan market world. So I'm watching that carefully. I operate in that space. I know there are a few of us that do. In fact, a lot of people in the company do. And that's one of the fears. So if we're trying to do risk management and we're trying to insulate our transactions, we really have to start paying attention to where people are going for loans.
Dwight, Chris and I had a conversation with some escrow officers last week, and we do have some people that are still doing jumbos at Bank of America. If you'd like the names of some referrals, we can send that to you.
Yeah, I think any hear of people that are.
One of the things I look at that when you say Wells Fargo, Wells Fargo has been, as far as I'm concerned, a dishonest company for almost a decade now, and they're trying to get over that and through that, but they have a lot more regulation of them because of that, and that might be putting them at a disadvantage right now. Although I can tell you that just in a different world, there's this payroll protection loans. Bank of America reported that it has exhausted its the money from the government that's going to get $10 billion. It's already has applications for that entire $10 billion, and the program is not even online yet. So I am looking at banks make money by making loans. I think the idea that that can be a problem. Having jumbo loans available can be an issue, but I'm thinking Wells Fargo, I'd be looking other places right away to see if that's a market trend or just a Wells Fargo trend. Anybody else, since people are willing to stay a few minutes longer, anybody else see any other issues that will hurt the marketplace? This is me taking a poll. Yeah.
Richard, I'm focused on people changing their mind, getting them into transactions achievable, getting them to close so we can give them the keys. I'm just trying to be prepared for little things popping up. You know, we always face that. Today, I think it's, you know, one headline could change a lot of things. I'm very focused on, you know, people are nervous as they're doing these deals. And the other thing that I'm working on is making sure the builders don't start discounting their houses all over town. That could cause some real buyer change of sentiments, and the buyers might think we're having a 20% off sale. So those are the two things I'm expecting to be confronted with.
Anybody else?
Yeah, this is Beth. I have an investor client that has a question about the 90-day rent moratorium. He's discounted his rents for April for his clients. And at the end of night, and he thinks that at least 3 of them are just flat not going to pay. He wants to know is that on day 91, can he file eviction notices?
Well, there's 3 layers of government involved in that answer, and it depends on where the loan's from. The feds announced Friday that if it's a federal guaranteed loan, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac loan, then or even FHA, those loans, they're requiring the lenders to allow up to a year, up to 12 months. And they're requiring them on that 12 months to provide loan modifications so that the loan is, so that the debt basically extends the time of the loan, or might be due at the end of the time of the loan. So if you have a 30-year mortgage, we're not going to make it 35, but we're going to take the 12 months that you didn't pay, we're going to put it as a balloon payment at the end of the loan. That's the kind of project, what's going on at the federal level. The state level, in terms of strictly dealing with mortgages and not renters, the state level has said it doesn't matter what you do, you're not going to be able to file an eviction until June 1. Right now is the date. So it doesn't matter what you could do, you can't even file the eviction, and then doing the foreclosure is another issue, because they put state of Oregon said stopping foreclosures also. And Oregon, by the way, has taken a step that that's unusual in the nation anyway, is that even commercial rents, put a moratorium on evictions for commercial rents. So those are issues that you currently face.
For evictions.
Say it again?
For evictions. If his tenant, this is residential, he has 3, it's a 6-plex, 3 of them, he's pretty sure are taking advantage and just saying, we're not paying rent for 3 months. And he's trying to figure out when he can evict them. I suspect there are other issues, I don't know. But his question is, and I knew we were talking to you today, I said I would ask. So his question is, when could he evict them?
So this is one of those things where there's too many variables, and I'll just tell you what the variables are.
Okay.
Is he in Portland or Milwaukee, because they have special rules? Is if they're failed to pay rent, can they document that it's related to the C-19 issues? If they don't pay rent and C-19 prohibitions are in place, can he evict them in 90 days? Is going to be whether that's still in place or not. So I would, and then it depends on do you have any Section 8 housing. There's just too many variables for me to do more than say there's. And I would be glad to talk with him, but that's going to be at my hourly rate.
Thank you, Richard.
I can give you a short answer. He cannot even file. He can't even send the notice, a 72-hour notice to pay rent right now, and he can't do that before June 1. Anything else? Chris, Tish, it's your show.
Can everybody hear me?
Well,
Sorry,
thank
Mike.
you. Thank
Yeah.
you very much. It was good to see everyone. Chris and I will send out Richard's handout, and then we'll also send out the information on Zochem for the, depositing earnest money through the app.
Yep.
Chris, anything
Yeah.
else?
Well, that sounds great. But I guess one more note, just to what John said. On the title and escrow side of things, our open order count is still amazing. Transactions are still being put together. I think just demand is so high. Obviously, the inventory is a little bit low. But for March, and I don't know if this is necessarily something you relay on your clients, but our cancellation rate was twice the rate of what it usually is. So I guess that's something to note of, and John kind of mentioned though, every headline, I think people are reacting to it. So depending what the news is that week, kind of dictates how set in stone each transaction is. But just from our side, we are seeing more cancellations than we usually are.
Yeah, I've been playing with my virtual background. You can see what mine looks like.
Yeah.
I like it.
Or that.
And I guess one other note too, we're doing a ton of these Zoom meetings, so we're always available to help you guys out in any way possible. If it's zip forms, DocuSign, social media marketing, lead generation, database management, whatever it is, we're here to help. And this, I think at first it was a little bit, people kind of took their foot off the gas a little bit, but I mean, we've been ramping up and setting appointments like crazy over Zoom calls. It's nice having these virtual backgrounds too, because I can sit anywhere in the house. And Tish and I had been in the office till this week, actually. So today's our first day actually being at home. But if you guys ever need anything, feel free to reach out to us because we would love to help you in this time. I know it's kind of crazy, but it seems like it's about to be the new norm here. And these kind of meetings, we're happy to set them up.
Good.
So
Much thanks to
Chris?
everybody.
Oops, sorry.
On that virtual background, is the only time you can do that is when we are on Zoom?
Yes.
Do it. Okay. Thank you.
Robin, I'll call you and show you how to do that.
Cool. Okay, guys.
Okay.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Richard.
everyone.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Richard.